You ever have one of those mornings where you just know something's about to go sideways before your feet even hit the floor? That was me, 6:45 a.m. Woken up not by birds or an alarm clock, but by the gut punch sound of a cement mixer roaring under my bedroom window, the air thick with asphalt. I figured maybe the city had sent a crew to mess with the drains again, but when I looked out, what I saw didn't make any sense. That mixer wasn't near my fence, or even just close. It was sitting smack in the middle of my front pasture, tearing my property up like nobody's business. I barely had time to throw on a hoodie and stumble outside barefoot, phone in hand. Honestly, I looked like a lunatic, but so would you if you found a construction crew pouring blacktop right through your yard, your fence ripped out, your sprinklers mangled a bulldozer carving your lawn into a dirt ramp. I stood there blinking, not even fully awake, while a backhoe dumped gravel 3 feet from my mailbox like it was just another Tuesday. That's when the site manager spotted me and gave this lazy little wave like I was a nuisance and I just about lost it. I demanded to know who approved this mess, and he shrugged, said, "The HOA president did like that was supposed to mean something. It's a shortcut for the community, gets kids to school safer. Like that justified paving a road through land I'd paid good money for." Right then it hit me. Someone had built a road across my property and I was about to lose my mind. 3 years back, I'd picked this corner lot for the peace and quiet. Not a giant spread, but enough a wraparound porch, some old oaks hedges lining the edge, a locked gate to a gravel path no one used, and a whole lot of distance from the neighborhood drama that always came with HOAs. I'd dreamed of building a workshop out back. Now that dream was being bulldozed by someone else's shortcut. Looking back, the warning signs had been there a week earlier. A woman in a white Lexus with a haircut straight out of a reality show had rolled up, started taking photos of my side yard, didn't wave or say a word, just snapped her shots and drove off. I'd chalked it up to nosy neighbors or real estate scouts. Turns out that was Karen, the HOA president from next door, infamous for writing up grass height violations and trying to evict families for the color of their door. I called the city right away, got transferred 3 times, put on hold, and finally a zoning officer told me there was no permit for a road, definitely not through private property. This wasn't city business, this was Karen business. I drove over to the HOA clubhouse, still covered in mud, and there she was, Karen herself, sipping coffee on the porch with her board cronies. I marched up, with mud on my feet. I wanted her to see I meant business and asked her point blank why there was a road on my land. She smiled, all fake politeness, and handed me a piece of paper. "Community easement rights," she said. I took one look and called her bluff. The numbers were wrong, the dates made no sense, and there was no record at the county. "You forged this," I told her, and for a second her mask slipped, but she snapped right back, warned me to calm down, and told me to talk to their legal team. I left before I did something I'd regret, but not before I photographed every inch of the destruction. Broken fence, mangled sprinklers, makeshift signs someone stuck in my yard. Then I called my lawyer. And let me tell you, my attorney doesn't play around. He fired off cease and desist letters to the HOA, the contractor, even the city's planning office. But Karen doubled down. She put up a notice on the HOA bulletin shortcut to "School now open thanks to your board's fast action." The next morning, parents and buses were cutting through and my land became a thoroughfare. The last straw. A landscaping truck parked on my lawn and crushed my flower bed. I realized then this was war, not paperwork. Karen had no idea I'd been quietly working on my own permits, ironclad city approved. I wasn't just going to sue. I was going to install a boom gate with cameras, sensors, the whole 9 yards, an obstacle so official and inconvenient they'd wish they'd never heard the word shortcut. By the time the road was fully paved, it looked like my property had been annexed. Cars streamed through, daily drivers waving like I was some roadside attraction. The HOA called it a community connector. I called it theft. Even Hank, the retired vet down the road, came by with his coffee and told me, "Ain't right what they did." Karen fined me once for my flag being crooked. Every story about her just lit the fire hotter. But talking to Hank shifted something in me. This wasn't about revenge. It was about taking back my sanity. Every day the litter piled up. Strangers strolled across my land. One even took selfies in front of my barn. When I confronted a guy whose dog trashed my garden, he just shrugged. Isn't this community space? Now I wanted to scream. At the next HOA barbecue, Karen gave a speech about community innovation, never mentioned she'd paved the innovation right through someone else's property. Someone sent me a video of her joking, "We're giving his land a purpose." That's when I started my own evidence file photos, videos, every trespass, every time Karen pulled up my warning signs. I installed cameras pointing at the shortcut, and sure enough caught dogs running wild, kids climbing my fence, even a jogger taking a leak behind my shed. So I showed up at this next HOA meeting uninvited. Karen tried to smile, but her eyes went hard when I hooked up my USB drive and played the footage. Trash vandalism, a kid lighting fireworks right on my yard. Then I turned to the room and said, "This is what your connector has done. You're trespassing, damaging property, and lying." Karen tried to brush it off, but I called her paperwork a forgery, had proof from the county. Suddenly her supporters started to waver, mumbling about legal trouble and wasted money. I told the room I'd filed a city complaint and was putting up a security system. No more shortcut, not ever again. Karen tried to call my bluff, but I'd already filed for and received the permit, and automatic boom gate motion sensors, cameras, steel posts, the works. The city had signed off. My land, my rules. The very next morning I posted a sign, "Private property, gate installation in progress, cameras active." Someone ripped it out. I replaced it with metal buried in concrete. Karen started emailing first, "Let's work together," then guilt trips about disrupting harmony. Finally, threats of legal action. I forwarded everyone to my lawyer, replied only to say, "You are trespassing. Cease immediately." Then unexpectedly, neighbors began reaching out. A mom apologized for using the road. An old man thanked me for standing up for myself. Not everyone was drinking Karen's Kool-Aid. The cherry on top. A teen tried to drift his scooter across the new steel posts and wiped out, triggering a social media storm about the Boomerang Road. Suddenly I had a nickname, the Gatekeeper. I kind of liked it. The day the gate arrived, I felt like a kid at Christmas. Heavy steel industrial with a motor that could lift a drawbridge. Installation took all day, concrete footings, rebar controls, synced to my phone. That evening, I dropped the arm with a satisfying clang. 10 minutes later, the first car pulled up and hit the barrier. Confused drivers tried to wave or look for a keypad, but all they found was a camera and a sign, "Private access only. No HOA traffic. Turn around." It didn't take long for Karen to show up, stomping in sandals, red-faced and huffing. She tried to lift the gate herself, pounded on the control box. I walked out, sipped my coffee, and told her the gate was legal, permitted, and reinforced. "You had your shortcut. Now you've got consequences." She called the sheriff, who came, reviewed my paperwork, and shrugged. "Road's private, gate's legal, nothing we can do." Karen nearly choked. Word spread. Some neighbors posted memes me as Gandalf. "You shall not pass," while others whined online about the bully with the boom gate. Some folks even tried to sneak in, but my cameras caught them. A couple kids' parents tried to threaten me until I showed them the video and the law. They backed down. Karen filed complaints, zoning, fire access, anything she could think of. Inspectors came, saw everything was up to code, and left. One even told me, "What they did was illegal. You're in the right." That week, Karen held an emergency HOA meeting and tried to whip up a mob, but even her own board turned on her. An older member called me and said Karen had used HOA money for fake surveys and flyers. I asked if she'd testify. She hesitated. "I have to live here," she said, "but promised to keep records." Then in the middle of the night, someone crashed through the gate, a black SUV driven by Karen's husband, so drunk he could barely stand. He was arrested on the spot, DUI, property damage, trespassing. Karen screamed at everyone, blamed me, but no one bought it. The community's patience snapped. The HOA voted to remove her, and she left in disgrace. I took everything to court. Every email, every fake document, every dollar she stole from the HOA. The judge dropped the hammer. Karen had to pay for my legal fees, the gate, and was banned from contacting me. The court ordered an audit, and what they found was worse. She'd been siphoning HOA money for years. When that broke, Karen was finished. Rumor had it she moved out, avoiding neighbors, hiding behind sunglasses. For the first time, the HOA apologized in writing. The new board even asked me for advice on how to prevent this kind of disaster again. I helped them out a little. The school kids called my gate the fortress. The principal even had me come talk about property rights. The shortcut was gone, the land healed, and with each morning the boom gate dropped, I felt like I'd finally put a period on a sentence I never wanted to write. But you know what? Karen tried one last time months later with a laughable lawsuit for emotional distress. Her lawyer barely got the words out before the judge tossed it. And that's when real investigators got involved: fraud, embezzlement, forgery, all charges against her. Her mugshot ended up on the news, and all I could do was eat popcorn and watch. So did I win? Not by rage or by stooping to their level, but with stubborn logic, relentless paperwork, and a boom gate that says loud and clear, this land is not up for debate. People still stop by, ask about the gate. Sometimes I let them in for a drink as long as they're respectful. Because boundaries aren't about keeping people out, they're about protecting what matters and reminding the Karens of the world that some walls just don't come down. So here's my question for you: is I right to hold the line? Or does community sometimes mean letting go of a little piece for the greater good? Let me know. Because if there's one thing I learned, it's that justice is never as simple as a boom gate coming down.